Hi, this is Heidi, episode 44, Listen to Understand. Life isn't a spectator sport. Success comes to those who show up every day with a pocket full of courage, grit, and a little sparkle. I'm glad you're here. Hello, friends. How are you? Wow, can we say what a wild ride this year, 2020, has been so far? I've seen several memes going around pronouncing 2020 like a dumpster fire or lots of other hot messes. And while I definitely agree on a humorous and superficial level, I actually think 2020 is going to be a reset year. Many times things need to be burned to the ground for rebirth and growth on a new and more beautiful level. The events over the last 2 weeks are very disturbing and have been very eye-opening to me. After these 5 episodes going into details on the 5 clarifying lenses that create the most distortion with our teenagers, I frame everything, no pun intended, on how any lens we have is clouding our vision of the real picture. Now, I'm not qualified to give any advice on combating racism or even reforming the policing in America, but I will share that I am 100% committed to learning about the incredible blind spots I have had in my own lenses about racism and white privilege. I'm learning and listening with a very humble heart and an open mind. This work I'm teaching you and I've studied for so long is exactly what we need to make the changes that the majority of us have been ignoring for a long time. We have thoughts, beliefs, many may be very subconscious that need to be uprooted and revealed, examined, some burned to the ground and replaced. And I believe it has to happen first on a very intimate and individual level, then followed by action. And the first step is listening. I mentioned listening as a skill we need to use with our kids and with anyone. In our families, sometimes we think we know what our children will say, or we've seen them do the same thing, so we don't listen to them. We might hear them. Hearing is easy, but listening is hard. Listening takes effort. Before I give you tools to really listen, it's very eye-opening to understand why listening is hard. First, as control freaks that we all are, we all want to be talking. Talking means we're in control of a conversation or relationship. Listening puts us in the less obviously controlling position. Okay, second, listening is hard because we get distracted. All of our senses are always working. Primarily, we might see or hear something else other than the person talking that might catch our attention, and that makes listening hard. Now, listen to this statistic that makes listening hard for all of us. The average person can speak about 125 words a minute, yet the average person processes up to 3 times faster, about 500 words per minute. So to really pay attention to the other person, we have to actively manage our brain, our thoughts, to stay focused on the conversation, on the words, on the message, both said and unspoken. Another reason that it's hard to listen is that our brains are usually wandering off and formulating what we will say in response. Most of us listen to reply. We're trying to decide what to say next. Instead, listening to understand is a skill where we intentionally open our mind. We try to clear away our biases, our judgments, lessen our ego, and we keep the conversation focused on the other person. Roy T. Bennett said, "The greatest problem with communication is we don't listen to understand, we listen to reply. When we listen with curiosity, we don't listen with the intent to reply, we listen for what's behind the words." I just love that. First, I love the emotion of curiosity. I think curiosity is the best emotion to have when trying to listen. Imagine if we all listened like detectives to discover what's behind the words. Most often our problems communicating with our families, with friends, coworkers, and strangers is because we don't see their point of view. We aren't seeking to understand the other person. We don't take the time to realize their point of view is valid. Other people want us seeing, witnessing, acknowledging, validating their perspective, their experience. And guys, it's hard. One last reason why listening is hard, our lower brains always want others to accept and like us. And we think that saying something will impress other people. We want other people to know that we know a lot. We don't live in this cave-dwelling world anymore. We have to consciously use our higher brain to close our mouth, assure ourselves that we are loved and worthy, and that listening is the most important thing, more important than saying the right thing. Now, just like the Buddha said, if your mouth is open, you aren't learning. I can think of several relationships and friendships that definitely are not as strong as they could be because I don't think the other person's really listening or seeing. And I have to say, my friend Anne is one of the best examples of someone who is always present and listening to everyone that she is with. If she's on a trip visiting family, I won't hear from her the whole time because she's present with them. And I've traveled and spent time with her, and she's totally present and listening to me. She's not distracted. It's a beautiful example and one that I want to learn from. So, how do we listen to understand? Listen without focusing on our reply. Here are 6 tips and tools to practice and use as you work on listening. Number 1, develop a learning and loving mindset. In every single conversation, constantly ask, what can you learn from this person? Often we dismiss people that we hear repeatedly, or we think our children have the same comments over and over. If we think this, we aren't open to hear and learn more. Even a person that you know holds a different point of view than yours, what can you learn from them? Be willing to say, I don't know, definitely to yourself and even out loud to them. Remind yourself over and over, there are things about this person and their experience and their wisdom that you are not aware of. And what are those things? We will learn and grow so much if we always assume that everyone else has something to teach us. We have to intentionally and very consciously force our brains to think these thoughts over and over. Okay, 2, listen and ask questions, open-ended questions. Instead of replying with a statement or fixing a problem or sharing our experience, ask questions. Ask, tell me more about your position on that. Why do you want to sit home and relax all summer instead of getting a job? You got to say that one not sarcastically. How did you come to the conclusion that you want to stop doing this or that? With a boss, can you tell me more about the reasoning behind my big project being dropped from the budget? Make the questions about the person and the subject that they're talking about. Questions keep the conversation, discussion, and thus connection going. Okay, tool number 3. It's easy in conversations to think someone wants to hear our experience on the same situation. Don't equate your experience to theirs. Don't make the conversation about you. This becomes conversational narcissism, and it's easy to do. When we're really listening, though, we need to really believe that someone else's experience is never the same as our experience. Their experience isn't about us. Conversations should never be promotional opportunities. If the person wants your opinion or to hear if you've had a similar experience, let them ask. If you ask them enough questions, they will ask you. Now, if you think that you sharing will build connection and even provide vulnerability, ask them, would you like to hear my experience when I grappled with a similar situation? Now, let me tell you, this one is hard, but it's really eye-opening. Watch yourself do it. Then stop yourself and see how you can turn your head, heart, and the conversation back to listening to the other person. Okay, number 4, beware of our biases and prejudices. The biggest barrier to really listening and understanding is starting a conversation with judgment. Often that judgment is, I am right, this person is wrong. Kind of like lens number 1 that I've taught you about. Or, I know more about them, they don't know enough to teach me anything. Often we think we know how another person should act, how they should feel in a situation. go and listen to the episode about lens number 1, I am right, if you want more tools on how to clear off this distorted lens. What if we approach every conversation only thinking that we are right about ourselves and that we get to respect that the other person is right about them? I recently had an eye-opening and learning experience about this. I realize I've said eye-opening now 5 times in this podcast. My husband and I had decided what we thought was right about our family situation, and we actually thought it was fantastic. As we moved forward with our plans, one child came to us repeatedly and voiced their opinions and feelings about how it wasn't right for them. And let me tell you, my husband and I were resistant for a long time. And do you know what I realized was blocking me from really listening and understanding this child? It was the thought that I know what's right for him, he doesn't. And guess what? I was wrong. I didn't know what was right for them. I was doing what I thought was best, but my own biases and judgments were blocking me at first from really listening. Once we started listening, asking questions, being open-minded, being humble, we really understood the child and we changed the family plans. I know it has deepened our connection with them. Okay, number 5, repeat back or restate what you have heard the person say. This helps clarify. It helps them see you're listening, and even better, restating stores the information deeper in your memory. If we restate things that aren't accurate to the other person, they can correct us. And maybe this gives them time to even put it in different words so we can understand better. It's like volleyball. When it's time to hit the ball, restating keeps the ball in play. But being judgmental or sharing an experience about ourselves is like just grabbing the ball and holding it. The game stops. Connection and understanding stop. Listening stops. Okay, number 6, constantly ask yourself, what am I not seeing? What isn't being said? With this thought always going through our minds are open to read someone else's body language. Maybe we remember things about this person that brings us compassion and empathy. With my children, I often remember I'm not seeing the hormones in their body creating emotional responses. I remember I'm not seeing their internal struggles. I'm not seeing stresses that I can't remember from teenage years or are different now, since their experience is different from mine. Now, as we embark on discussions regarding racism and anti-racism, this question is going to be critical to us understanding someone else. Are there things they don't feel safe saying to us, but need to be said and need to be understood? We can't fake listening, y'all. It shows. Focus your mind and heart. Know why you want to listen to someone. Understand your why, and all of this will be easier. The why might be wanting to respect others, wanting to love, wanting to learn, wanting to grow. Now, I have to say something interesting. As I was typing this, my teenage son came into my room to talk to me. He had a bunch of things to tell me, and they were all good. And I noticed how at one point I was listening to reply. I was listening, but then I got focusing on how I could say something supportive. I noticed at one point I got distracted by a list in front of me. I managed my brain, closed my laptop, got eye contact. I asked questions. Even now that the conversation is over, I can think of several questions I could have asked to discover more about his comments, to keep the conversation going. We're all going to fumble through this. The key is to keep trying, keep going, keep connection going. Now, please continue to rate and review the podcast in iTunes. I'm excited for all of you and my current and new clients who are doing the brave and courageous and loving work to clear off their lenses. We can all see doing this work will benefit our family relationships as much as all of our relationships with all of the human beings. I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, safe, and go love on yourself and your kids.